Hello students, what's up? Hope you are doing very well. I'm also doing very good. All of you know that you have to describe a graph or chart in the SS exam which carries 10 marks. Today I want to give you some instructions, or I would better say some tips to write a better or powerful description of the graph. So let's get started. At first, we have to know what is a graph or chart. A graph is a diagram representing a system of connections or interrelations among two or more things by a number of distinctive dots, lines, bars, etc. Mathematics, a series of points, discrete or continuous, as in forming a curve or surface, each of which represents a value of a given function. That's a bit lengthy, so let's get a short one. In short, a graph is a mathematical diagram which shows the relationship between two or more sets of numbers or measurements. Can you tell me some synonyms for graphs? Yes, it may be diagram or figure or table. Let's see some different types of graphs and charts. Wow, there are 5 types of graphs and charts. Can you tell me the name of the first one? It's a bar graph. The second one, it's a line graph. The third one, a pie chart. The fourth one, an area chart. The fifth one, it's simply a table or chart. Most commonly in our exam, bar graph, pie chart, and chart or table are important. Before you begin to describe the chart, you have to underline the keywords. Write related words, turn nouns into verbs, verbs into nouns, adjectives into adverbs, etc. Write opposite words, similar words, synonyms, etc. Circle and highlight the graph. Use arrows or you can make notes. Circle the biggest, the smallest, the stable or unchanging parts, sudden increases or decreases, etc. And most importantly, you have to identify the trends. A trend is the overall idea of the graph. We have to understand what is happening or what happened, the main change over time, the most noticeable thing about the graph, the pattern over time, etc. Now, we have to use or know some verbs to describe the trends in graphs or charts. It may be an upward trend or a downward trend, or it may be stable. For upward trend, these following verbs can be used, like rise, jump, grow, climb, go up, increase, or rocket. For a downward trend, we can use the verbs like fall, drop, decline, decrease, go down, plunge, or plummet. Sometimes it happens that the graph is a stable one. In that case, we can use the verbs like stay, remain, maintain, or we can use adjectives like constant, steady, or stable. And to describe these verbs, we can use some adverbs to say how. We can use the adverbs like sharply or quickly, rapidly or steeply, considerably, significantly, substantially. If the trend goes slowly, we can use the words like steadily or gradually, moderately. If the trend goes up or downward, slightly, slowly, you can use these adverbs. Now, here we can see some other useful graph vocabulary. Sometimes it happens that the graph goes both upward and downward. So that means it fluctuates. In that case, we can use the words like fluctuate, undulated, dip, vary, swing, oscillate, or alter around. Sometimes it happens that the graph reaches the top of the graph. In that case, we can use the words like reached a peak or peaked, reached its highest level, and on the contrary, when it reaches the bottom of the graph, we can use such words like bottomed out, sank to a trough, the lowest level, etc. There are some rules of describing the graphs and charts. First of all, you have to start it with an introductory sentence. For example, the graph or the chart shows or represents or indicates or highlights or provides or gives, etc. Then you have to make a general comment on the main trend of the graph or chart. Now, give a detailed description of the trends with information and data. In this part, compare and contrast the trends, then summarize the trends, and then comes the conclusion. It may be a general conclusion. What is important, most important, is that use the verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs mentioned before to describe the trends properly and accurately. There are some other things to remember. Look at the important trends or characteristics and give a general overview. Normally use verbs in the past tense when describing trends, though always look for dates to confirm which tense to use. Do not write about things that do not appear in the graph. Just describe the information that appears. Don't forget to mention the units mentioned, such as percentage, lakhs, thousands, crores, dollars, millions, billions, etc. Now let's see a sample graph. The graph below shows pastime activities of the students of Bangladesh from 1990 to 2010. Describe the graph in 150 words. You should highlight and summarize the information given below. Let's see the graph. So in this graph, the ash bar represents watching TV, the yellow bar represents games and sports, and the purple bar represents online program activities of the students of Bangladesh from the year 1990 to 2010. Now we are going to describe the given graph. In the first para, we are going to give an introduction of the graph. With the passage of time, people's pastime activities are also changing. Here, the graph shows different types of pastime activities of the students of Bangladesh. So, in the first para, we are not going to give any data or information. It will come in the next para. As we see in the graph, in 1990, 40% of the students watched TV, 50% participated in games and sports, and 10% got themselves engaged in online program as their pastime activities. After a decade, in 2000, the number of TV viewers increased to 40%, but the number of students participating in games and sports came down to 40%. In the same year, the percentage of students spending time on online program rose to 15%. In 2010, the number of TV viewers increased further and stood at 55%, while the percentage of participants in games and sports decreased to 30%. But the percentage of the students spending time on online program increased to 25%. In the second para, we can clearly see the upward trend and the downward trend. So the upward trend is described as increased or rose, and the downward trend is described as came down or decreased. Then comes the concluding para of the description. Thus, it is clear that in compliance with the age and available facilities, the students are choosing their pastime activities. Actually, the facilities for sports and games getting reduced and the students are getting inclined to indoor pastime activities. That's all about graphs and charts today. Hope this video will help you a lot to describe the graph and chart nicely and clearly. Thank you very much. See you next time.